If you grew up in the mid-2010s with unrestricted internet access, then you're no stranger to the horrors the internet was home to, like Kick, Animal Jam, and Pixel Gun 3D. In the early days of Pixel Gun 3D, there was not much to do. However, buried within the multiplayer section was one button that would home some of the most depraved individuals in this seemingly innocent Minecraft knockoff. What was once a community inside joke for years might actually be something far more concerning and disturbing than anyone could have imagined. To understand why sandbox mode became such a problem, we actually have to go back years before sandbox even existed, because contrary to popular belief, this didn't start with sandbox. For as long as the online multiplayer feature has been in the game, the custom lobbies feature has also existed alongside. Players could change the lobby name and set a password to prevent unwanted players from joining. If you were unfortunate enough to ever find yourself in the custom games tab, then you know the absolutely insane names these lobbies had. In most cases, the moment developers were made aware of this issue, they would instantly start working on a way to combat it. That was the complete opposite of what actually happened. What was even more shocking to me was that the developers had years to not only be made aware, but develop a fix. The first thing that came to mind was that the game has a built-in chat filter. However, it's basically only known for how useless it is, and I'll explain why. The oldest evidence of a chat filter being present in the game files was all the way back from version 3.10.4. The chat filter that would be implemented in November of 2013 was very bare bones to say the least. This new chat filter system consisted of exactly 100 lines of code. Understanding what this single script does is essential to understanding why exactly it's so flawed. I'll break it down into two simple parts, starting with the word list. These are the words that are not allowed in the chat. Next is the core function. This processes the actual chat message, then each individual word is compared to the word list. If the word doesn't match anything, it's left as it is. However, if there is an exact match, that match is then replaced with 3 asterisks. Only then is the filtered message posted to the chat. There's one major flaw that you might have already noticed, which we'll come back to in a second. This chat filter does nothing more than search and censor exact matches. Since this code only censors exact matches, simply attaching something like an apostrophe would completely bypass this filter. After briefly analyzing the chat filter code, it was pretty hard to ignore that it was just insanely ineffective. But I had to remind myself that this was from a 2013 version of the game. So I went through the files of some later versions so I could see exactly how it evolved over the years, which is when I came across something I never expected. But before we get into that, if you enjoy high quality deep dive videos like this about Pixel Gun 3D, hit that subscribe button. It supports me and it tells the YouTube algorithm you don't want to see any AI slop. And you can also secure your before 10K ticket since we're approaching that number pretty quickly. I did want to thank my 2 channel members, Not the Goat Dran and Venti Iced Tea. Thank you so much for supporting me and my content. It means the world to me. If you're not a channel member, you should totally do it. No pressure though, but it helps out a lot. Thank you. Back to the video. After the implementation of the chat filter, it would remain mostly untouched until October 16th of 2015, with the release of the 10.1.0 update, which would coincidentally be the same update the sandbox mode would be added. The changes that were made to the chat filter consisted of a whopping 60 lines of code. The word list added 7 words, with one of those being penis. Yeah, I don't know why, but it's on there twice, just in case it somehow got by the first time. Even with those changes, the bigger issue still remains. It can be easily bypassed with the same method as before. Over the course of the next few months, content surrounding the sandbox mode would start appearing. Even though these videos could range anywhere from regular gameplay, commentary, or trolling, they all had one thing in common. They showcased just how freaky the players were within the sandbox mode. No matter what video you would watch, if you look in the top left of the chat, there was almost always going to be one concerning message. A lot of these videos were posted within 3 months of the sandbox mode and modified chat filter being released. Usually for a community to become this bored, it takes at least a year. Which brings me to a pretty strange discovery I made when researching this entire situation. bear with me now. The concept of creating a dating app only for kids is an insane idea that should never happen. I'm sure you and most of the world can already think of a handful of reasons as to why, which is why no one's done it, or at least I hope. Regardless, creating a space for kids to make personal and romantic relationships with little to no moderation is undeniably a recipe for disaster. I considered sandbox mode to be an unfortunate byproduct of something the company intended to be innocent. Pretty quickly throughout my digging of the in-game files, I came to realize that unfortunately, it seems Cubic Games was well aware of what they were doing. Let's start off with the most obvious evidence of this. The first map added to the sandbox mode was Quiet Island. Taking a look at the actual map design and environment, the island resembles a wedding with cake, balloons, a literal wedding arch with a heart on top, as well as a sign that says love right next to it. Just that alone definitely suggests that this mode was centered around dating, or at the very least romantic roleplay. But I figured I should still give them a chance to maybe redeem themselves. The rest of the island is normal for the most part, but let's take a look inside of the house. Oh my god, it is the room. What is that chair? Now that I'm older, looking at the placement of this chair, it was for sure intentional. I feel like this is the right time to mention that as I went through the in-game files, the Quiet Island map is referred to as love_island, but that's not even the worst part. Literally everything related to the sandbox mode is named dater_ and then whatever it is. It's important to realize that these files and footage are from the 10.1.0 update, which was when the sandbox mode was released. So you can't just write off the love_island name or dater files as the developers playing into the community joke. While I do admit there are some funny aspects to all of this, I also have to acknowledge the very real implications of this. The issue of lobbies being used for dating and other inappropriate activities existed long before the sandbox mode, but at no point was a meaningful effort made to combat this. Throughout the years, not a single social media name has been added to the chat filter. Matter of fact, they not only neglected the weakness, they allowed it to continue by failing to improve the chat filter, as well as releasing an entire game mode where the sole objective is to socialize, with the in-game files and overall environment suggesting that it was for more than just your typical friendly, innocent interactions. This indirectly creates an environment where bad actors could easily target victims. At the end of the day, a majority of the player base was and still is children. I'll elaborate on that more later. Everything I've discovered up until this point, paired with the boatload of videos documenting these concerning activities within Sandbox, which mind you garnered hundreds of thousands of views, makes it pretty difficult to believe the company wasn't aware of this situation. Aside from expanding their word blacklist, on top of that, all of these years later, it still fails to include any popular social media or messaging apps. Might I add, it's as simple as typing in some of the names in popular shortened variations. I even tested how hard it would be to actually make this change myself, and as someone with little to no experience in programming, it is insanely easy. To demonstrate, I copied the same list of words Pixelgun uses, but I included social media names, as well as popular shortenings of them. Keep in mind, this fix isn't perfect. Think of this chat filter as a door. Sure, if someone really wants to break in, they can keep kicking the door until it eventually breaks. It at least deters a majority of intruders, making it a bit more difficult. On the other hand, the Pixelgun company basically left the door wide open. So far, this investigation has focused on the chat system. Unfortunately, that once small problem has snowballed into a much larger concern in the game. Things like usernames, custom skins, capes, and even clans all expose the same weakness. Unsurprisingly, usernames and clan names utilize the exact same filter as the chat, paired with the custom skins and capes, which no matter how hard I searched, couldn't find any sort of filtering or reviewed system associated with them. All of these further contributed to the undeniable, clear need for better moderation. Games like Roblox, VRChat, and Minecraft understand this, yet Pixelgun's safety features have barely advanced. It's no secret that features like usernames and cape skins were pretty bad when abused, but they're nothing compared to what exploiters have managed to do in the game. With one of the most known examples of this happening to a streamer known as Prophecy Guard. One specific clip of him streaming showcases someone spelling out a certain derogatory slur in the air. This clip did blow up on Instagram Reels, getting around 700,000 views and 73,000 likes. These targeted racist attacks have become a regular part of Prophecy Guard's streams, unfortunately. This is just yet another case of the company turning turning a blind eye to a very real and sensitive issue that's not only affecting players, but the very content creators who are partnered with them. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, this also happened on their own livestream on the official Pixelgun 3D channel. While it's hard to see what message was written in the sky, it was clearly enough to make the person streaming their gameplay to leave the game. A bit later on in that same stream, the lobby would be completely griefed in the same way that can be seen on Prophecy Guard streams. And once again, the person streaming leaves the game, and hilariously tries to save face by saying, quote, "They're having some technical difficulties." What makes this more ironic is the fact that this entire stream was centered around the community being able to play against the developers. This livestream is crystal clear evidence of the very people who are supposedly actively working on the game, experiencing firsthand the consequences of their pathetically weak moderation. During the research of this video, I honestly started to doubt myself, thinking that maybe I'm just overreacting about this whole situation. So I posted a community poll, asking a simple question. Is Pixelgun's moderation for capes, names, skins, and chat effective? I can't say I was surprised with the results, which shows over 95% of people don't believe it's effective. But it doesn't stop there. The comments shared mostly the same feelings as I did, like the report button feeling useless. After seeing those results, I figured I should do the same thing for the sandbox mode as well, just to confirm that a majority of the community could at least agree that this mode was dangerous. So I made another community post, simply asking, first thing that comes to mind when you see this. Unfortunately, the responses I received once again confirmed what I was thinking. Countless people recall the predatory nature and behavior in the sandbox mode. It's pretty safe to assume that there's probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions of kids who can recall unsettling memories of this game mode. Now, I already know someone is going to comment, "It's just a game, it's not that serious." You have to keep in mind, while these were just messages on the screen at the end of the day, it's impossible to know just how many conversations got taken outside of the game, and just what actually happened in those private messages. Which brings me to my next point. That's the fact that Pixelgun 3D has always been known for having a young player base, as well as the game being marketed towards a younger audience. For some reason, I got reminded of the Esoteric Inc. investigation I did a few months back, and I was reminded of a past statement that I came across from the Pixelgun team. I'm going to be taking this directly out of their own playbook. As a company with a young player base, you bear the responsibility to maintain a safe and moderated environment. This means not leaving the door wide open for bad actors, as well as actively working to prevent your very young player base from being exposed to explicit and inappropriate content. It's pretty easy to just claim that Pixelgun 3D is for kids. I still did my due diligence to find some evidence of this. What I came across was a 2022 SEC filing for the acquisition of Pixelgun 3D. In page 27 of the filing, it reads, "While none of our games target children under 13 years of age as their primary audience, the FTC as well as consumer organizations may consider that the characteristics of several of our games may attract children under 13 years of age." But just 10 pages later, on page 37, they explain that they've received as well as acknowledged complaints regarding potentially inappropriate material for children in their ads, with them saying, quote, "In July 2021, we received a letter from Advertising Standards Canada regarding a complaint which alleges that one of our ads is inappropriate for children. It's important to establish now that this isn't some sort of PR attempt to save their image. This is a legal filing submitted to the United States government." Even past the legal side of things, their marketing on platforms like TikTok do take a nostalgic approach by referencing Pixelgun 3D as being a quote childhood game. Taking a step back, where they allegedly had some material in an advertisement that wasn't suitable for younger audience, this naturally made me curious to find what specific ad this was. So I dug through hundreds of meta ads they ran across Facebook, Messenger, Instagram, TikTok, as well as Google Ads. This one ad in particular was not only misleading, but beyond inappropriate. The ad starts off featuring a female character in a pretty suggestive position, as well as her moaning. The camera then moves back and showcases some characters from Pixelgun 3D in places that are just non-existent in the actual game. I thought this might be the ad that was referenced in the complaint by Ad Standards Canada, so I checked Google Ads transparency to see when this ad was last shown in Canada. However, it revealed that this ad was last shown on October 20th of 2025, meaning this most likely wasn't the ad referenced in the complaint. My reason for bringing this up is that it gives us clear evidence that as recently as 2022, the company was well aware of their younger player base. Even knowing that, no change to their moderation approach was taken. Two pretty unique things that stood out to me in the SEC filing was that the company specifically lists maintaining a quality social game experience and adapting to player preferences, as stated on page 12, as key factors for success. Everything we've covered up until this point completely contradicts that. Now that we've covered what exactly the issues were, you're probably wondering, so what should have been done? The reality of this is that it's not rocket science to solve these problems. These are problems basically every online game has faced forever. Ideally, the most effective way to combat this would be by adding a report button, so content can be manually reviewed. Oh wait, there is a report button. These reports seem to make no difference just based on the insane amount of offensive usernames and hateful content. To make matters worse, I also couldn't find any proof in the game's code surrounding where these reports get sent, if they even get sent anywhere. At the end of the day, a lot of the responsibility does fall into the hands of the parents, but that doesn't take away all of the responsibility from the developers and the company. Like I already covered earlier in the video, improving the chat filter is embarrassingly easy to fix. Based on the company's own words, the social aspects of Pixel Gun 3D are intended to be a core feature. If their intentions truly were like they stated, then it's more than reasonable to question why moderation never improved, despite the years and endless amounts of community feedback and complaints. The sandbox mode was certainly problematic on its own. However, it more so highlighted a behavior that's existed for basically as long as the game did. While most companies would at the very least address this issue, this doesn't hold true to the Pixel Gun company, despite them being one of the most popular mobile games of all time. Which raises the question of just how much of these earnings are actually going towards harboring a safer environment for the millions of young players, who are directly responsible for even making this level of success possible for the Pixel Gun company. It's hard to determine one sound reason as to why they chose to willingly ignore such a dire issue, whether it was the result of resources, priorities, or something else entirely. I'll leave it up to you guys to decide.